Whimsical humor and romantic love. Part 1, the avalanche is here. When it reached the point that I didn't even know a clear opinion about something that I always did, always had clear opinions about political things, international stuff, but the avalanche just overwhelmed me. Avalanche of information and disinformation. I stepped into an avalanche. It covered up my soul. Beautiful, beautiful line from Leonard Cohen. I don't know of anybody who has not reduced their consumption of media, including me, since the insanity began. The existential dread, the sinking feeling in mind and body. And you better learn some German to understand the word Angst. You've been wrestling with that daily. When I was 10 years old, and the Cuban Missile Crisis put the whole world in a state of uncertainty for one terrifying week, I was 10, that even extended to our dining room table. Was there going to be a nuclear war destroying the planet? Even a 10-year-old kid could ask that question, and I did. I never asked these two carpenters, I even asked these two carpenters who were working behind the house, building a little tool shed connected to the house. They were both Southerners and drinkers. Sometimes they got drunk. Weren't intellectuals like my family. But you know what? We liked them because they were a nice contrast to our family. And they said yes, there would be a nuclear war. But they didn't say it with any sadness, as I recall. So that made it even more dreadful. And so I asked my father. That sucks. And he worked for the federal government. In fact, there was a chance that we as a family, because he was pretty high up in the FCC, would be able to be included in a government-run fallout shelter if the war broke out. And that was a big deal. He answered no. There would not be a nuclear war. And I think that comforted me, though enough to put it out of my mind, just like he put out of my mind. At the same age, the thought of dying and fearing that I would always think about dying nonstop. He told me that wouldn't happen, that I'd get over it. He was right on both counts. 1964. Sorry, shit. It's 1984. 1984. Everyone knows that novel. It's the essence of dystopia, which is the opposite of utopia. People are obeying in advance. Right now, Big Brother said, war is peace. Trump said the Gulf of Mexico was now the Gulf of America. And Jeff Bezos of the Washington Post, marionette style, followed. Billions are changed in Plato's cave. We've all heard about Plato's cave. And the shadows of brainwashing wear black masks and no name tags, and will persecute you for trying to break out of the cave of ignorance. Like to quote illegals. What a fucking word. That's not a good word. That's a wrong word. Chipping their way through ice, I-C-E, and heading straight into rubber bullets or worse. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? 1971. I used to think was trivial. The lyrics, I thought they were trivial. But that's because I was thinking too much and not feeling enough. Because it's saying, song is saying, it reaches a point where you don't know what's going on. Like now. And I thought I never would reach that point where anything going on politically, culturally, socially would ever become so fucked up to fathom, or would be boring or tedious or saturated, oversaturated. People writing about it. So what could I write about? Or even think about clearly, what could I say? What words would I articulate? What could I express that would be unique, that would be heard over the sound and the fury above rhetoric and ideology? Analysis, yeah. And I can come up with pretty unique ones, but no, they're not listening. They're not going to be heard. This is where we start to go inside, into the imagination. The imagination that has no boundaries, no grammar, no rules of conjugation, most importantly, no fucking decisions to make. No boundaries of thought. Anything can be in your imagination. Anything can be in a dream. The famous dreams of people making love to their mothers. Well, we don't have to go there, but dreams where you're about to die and you wake up. But I want to talk about the kind of dreams that lift not only your spirit and your soul, but lift your body, make things look weird. We're going to call that whimsical humor. Whimsical humor. It doesn't have to follow the rules of humor even. And it's not the exact same as absurd humor. Let's say it's absurd humor, but with a nice hug and a squeeze, like what I'm doing with my pets over here. I did a lot of absurd, whimsical humor. God, I engaged in so much whimsical humor with my father as a child, because check this out, listen carefully to this humor. I loved to pat his head, even his name Hyman, and then there was Larry Howard of the Three Stooges. That was the middle guy. And President Martin Van Buren, how many know about him? He had the exact same head. So there we go into whimsy. Why did I love to pat my father's head? Because it was round, basically bald and smooth. It looked joyful, like the head enjoyed me patting it and then squeezing it. What else could I do with that head? And I've written in the past, as I've written in the past, I couldn't water it like a plant or wax and polish it like a bowling ball, although you felt like you wanted to. I also found alternatives, such as holding a watermelon and patting it. Although the watermelon, as you know, is a little more rigid than my father's head. But you get the point. Like under the chin of a frog and their bulging tummy. I didn't get to sneak behind the glass at the National Zoo and pat penguins' tummies, who walk as though the tummy was pulling them forward. An enormous throat sag of a male adult orangutan. I've fallen in love with them. An adult male orangutan. What else? What else? What else? I wrote a children's book called Watermelons Are Comf. That's C-O-M-F, capital C-O-M-F. So do I have to explain the word comfort? Of course I do, and no, it doesn't define the experience, because it has to be experienced. I think that everyone at some point experiences it a lot. A lot of people experience it with their babies, their infants, and or their house pets, such as a dog or a cat. But in my opinion, the dog has to look a certain way. It can't be angular and slender. It has to have that roundness, like pugs. I never had a dog, but Pugs are really comf. You just see them and you want to pat them. They're not pretty, but they're inviting. And cats that are round and fluffy. And my cat is not quite round and fluffy, but has an incredible head. Yeah, there was a cat of a cousin of mine, big cat, and we called him Fathead Herman. That head you just want to pat. So beyond comfort, and comfort is the feeling you get when you're attracted to something that's comf. Okay, you get a feeling of comfort when you're attracted to something that's comf. It's kind of like a circular definition. And I used to say it, comf, within my family, but I didn't want people, outside people, to know about it because then I would have to explain it. Or it was like a secret of my own family. And the first time, and it was with family friends, one of the sons is still a friend of mine, it was back in Silver Spring. My parents brought up the word comfort or comf, and I was embarrassed, tongue-tied, betrayed that they promised not to reveal it. I don't know if my face turned red or blushing or what, but I remember feeling that comf was no longer mine because nobody would understand it exactly. They'd misinterpret. Where else can an imagination of whimsical humor take us to get beyond the algorithms now? To get beyond the algorithms now. The algorithms are definitely not comf. No way. They're the opposite. And the internet is not comf. Social media is not comf. Ideological politics are not comf. So let's just put those out of sight right now and focus again on the whimsy.